Hello, everyone. Ex-Bethelite here. Someone wanted me to talk a little bit about Gilead School. Now, Gilead was at Patterson. I was located at the farm, Walk Hill. However, my congregation was East Poughkeepsie. And based off of where Poughkeepsie was located, we had both Walk Hill Bethelites and Patterson Bethelites, in addition to Gilead students in our congregation there at East Poughkeepsie. Now, I haven't been to Gilead, so I'm not going to just talk about, I don't know about the actual school and the training. However, I know that Jehovah's Witnesses like naming things after random locations in the Bible. Bethel, Gilead. I believe Gilead is like, what is the meaning of that word? Like mountain of rocks, or I don't know, something like that. But other than Watchtower enjoys naming things, they could have just named Bethel Watchtower Factories. They could have just named Gilead Training for Missionary School. But I don't know. Maybe they think that it adds spirituality to the organization to name things after random places in the Bible. So I hadn't been to Gilead, but I got a chance to work in field service with Gilead students. And I recall rushing to go grab some food so that I could hurry up and get ready to go out and field service. Obviously, you want to try to get to field service, the meeting for service on time. And East Poughkeepsie that congregation was about 45 minutes or so from Walk Hill. So I needed to hurry it up. So I got my container and I put some tomato soup in there. We were having grilled cheese and tomato soup. So I put in the tomato soup and I grabbed a couple of grilled cheese sandwiches and I'm rushing to my room. Well, on my way to my room, I see Brother Rayford. And I may have mentioned him before. That's the person that I spoke to about the racism that was going on in my department, which was my primary problem with Bethel. A lot of things you can overlook. But an African American is not going to be able to overlook racism coming from what is supposed to be the highest levels of God's organization. So I see Brother Rayford. I say hello. He looks down and says, hello, brother. I see you have a soup. And I don't know if anybody that knows Brother Rayford knows that's how he talks, but I don't know if he's trying to imply that I had too much food or what. Because tomato soup and a couple of grilled cheese sandwiches should not gather that much attention. Especially since walking through the residence at night, I was leaving a brother's room and heading back to my room. And as I was walking through the residences, I saw Brother Rayford going to his. And he had a case of beer. I may have mentioned this before, but he had a case of beer. I mean, a huge one. And I don't mean the 6 bottles of beer. I think it was the cans, and it was like a 24 pack or something like that. Now, unless his wife and him drink a ton of beer, that's probably all for him. So I should have, on that night, walked past Brother Rayford and said, hello, brother. I see you have a beer. Now, I probably wouldn't have lasted as long as I did. had I done that. But if you're going to bring up that I have a good amount of soup, I should probably highlight that you had a good amount of beer, which is a bigger deal. So I head off to my congregation for the meeting for field service. And anytime you're working with Gilead students, it's kind of the same feeling that you have when you work with a circuit overseer for service. You know, you're a little bit more on your game. You're a little bit more watchful. You're kind of watching them because you're thinking, whoa, you know, he really knows what he's doing. He's a CEO. So imagine me working with Gilead students. So I was working with a sister. We split up into groups. Of course, single Bethelite. So you can't, you know, you got married Gilead students. You have to break that up. So I end up working with a brother's wife. And, you know, we go around the block, going from door to door. And sister was nice. And maybe they weren't completely finished with their training. But she wasn't any better at the door than your average JW. You know, a guy comes to the door, we knock. A guy comes to the door, or she knocks rather. And, you know, when the guy comes to the door, she almost has this look on her face like, crap, I didn't want anybody to answer that door type of a look, like, oh, that look where it's like, you know, the door actually opens when you knock and it's like, oh, you know what I mean? Somebody actually answered it. So then she goes through the presentation, which was the typical presentation. And I didn't notice anything while we were in service. And I'd work with other Gilead students in field service. I didn't notice anything that would knock your socks off. Like, wow, they are training these people to do awesome things in the door to door. So, which makes one wonder, what exactly do they teach at Gilead? I would love to hear from a Gilead student on that, because you already have, we had the theocratic ministry school, right? So if you're born and raised JW from a little kid on up, you've been knocking on doors. From a little kid on up, you have been going to meetings, which those meetings train you to go door to door. So it makes me wonder, what is Gilead? What are they teaching there that's any different from theocratic ministry school? I've been to Pioneer School, and I can definitely tell you that if Gilead is an extended Pioneer School, then they probably aren't learning a whole lot of anything. It may be just a lot of socializing and whatnot, which is what we were doing at the Pioneer School. The COs would give a part. Nothing that they're saying is anything new from what we have heard growing up as a JW, going to the theocratic ministry school. We had food there. We all socialized. While we were in the car groups, we would socialize and go door to door. It was nothing special. See? So one thing that I didn't fully understand, it's not just, you know, Watchtower is not the best organization when it comes to making predictions. You had 1975 debacle. You had the generation of 1914. If they got the year wrong, well, they then went ahead and tried to predict a whole time frame of generation of 1914, and they got the whole time frame wrong. So Watchtower is just about as bad at predictions as they are in organization and structure and finances. Because we had all these people being sent away from Bethel. The whole restructuring and the whole concept was that these people were being reassigned, right? So if the concept is not, these are layoffs. If Watchtower isn't saying that these are layoffs, and they're saying that these are reassignings, Jehovah wanted to strengthen the individual congregations and strengthen the field. Well, if Jehovah wanted to strengthen the field, keep in mind, this is early 2000s when this happened. So if Jehovah and the plan that God had in quote unquote reassigning Bethelites wasn't a financial issue, if it was to strengthen the field, well, we have a problem. And that problem is that the field wasn't strengthened. As a matter of fact, they're selling kingdom halls left and right. Probably 3 or 4 congregations, the city I used to be in, Dayton, have already been sold. People are being smashed in to kingdom halls because they've been selling buildings. So it seems to be a whole big mess. Watchtower is a huge mess. All these Bethelites being sent home, reassigned, whatever you want to call it. I call it layoff. But if Marcus is wrong, and it wasn't a layoff, had nothing to do with Watchtower just couldn't afford to keep up with everything. If it had nothing to do with that, and had everything to do with Jehovah just wants to strengthen congregations. Well, he failed, right? Because all these congregations are so small that they start to consolidate and sell halls. I've seen pictures or video even, and the videos of people that crash halls, sometimes those videos are very different from the pictures you'll see at jw.org. You may see a kingdom hall on jw.org, and that hall is full, filled with people. But then you see in some of these videos that people make when they go to kingdom halls, and the whole front of the hall is empty, or the whole back is empty, or you just got people sprinkled here and there throughout the congregation. So if early 2000s, Jehovah says, I'm going to strengthen the field, the congregations, by sending Bethelites wherever they end up, because we didn't give them an actual assignment, a lot of them. Well, why hasn't it been strengthened? Why hasn't the field been strengthened is my question, from sending all these Bethelites away. It sounds to me like, yeah, they were selling buildings is what it was. And the structure of Watchtower is so poor that they didn't have a way of selling buildings in Brooklyn and keeping all these Bethelites and building Warwick. They couldn't figure out how to get all that done without having what I call massive layoffs. We just got to send a bunch of people away now. What you also have on YouTube and possibly even jw.org are Gilead graduations. And it just it doesn't make sense if, again, if the organization wasn't lying and saying we're sending Bethelites back into the field to strengthen the field. If that was their intention, you got this whole Gilead here where you're supposed to be training people for months, right? Is the course like 20 weeks or something like that? You're training people to then strengthen the field wherever they are. So help me with this logic. You have this whole school here to train people so that they can go out and be successful in the field, right? But then you went and sent away Bethelites who spent the most of their time working. I was doing good to get 10 hours in service. As a Bethelite, if you're getting 10 or a little bit above that, no one's going to say anything. So how exactly, again, is sending Bethelites and not Gilead? We should be watching a Gilead graduation right now. I don't know what class, the 199th class. They should have a whole graduation, and you should have tight pants, do the graduation and say, "Welcome to the 199th class of Gilead." I can't remember if it was Sidlick that had the lisps where it was always class and this lasted for like 30 minutes. But he should, announce that class and then, hold up the graduation and say, "We are sending you to Dayton, Ohio." And then everybody claps and then they go and do their thing. And then the next Gilead couple stands up and they say, "We are sending you to California," right? Because it looks like if the field needed to be strengthened, they needed to send a class into America. The organization is falling apart in America. So if this training in Gilead, because I've never been, so I'm not going to talk about too in depth about something I don't know anything about. I've never been to Gilead training. Only thing I have been to is Pioneer School, Theocratic Ministry School, and I know that those schools weren't training people to be that effective either. So if Gilead was that effective, we should have never had an issue where kingdom halls are so empty that they all need to be sold. They could have sent those Gilead students in. You got MTS training school. Send those MTS brothers in there to strengthen those congregations, to strengthen the field. Watchtower already had a way of strengthening the field. They had Gilead and they had MTS, Ministerial Training School. So if Watchtower is trying to strengthen the field, why then didn't they just send Gilead and missionaries and MTS students into the field then? Why send Bethelites into the field? Does that make sense to you? You got Bethel, you got MTS, you got Gilead. You want to strengthen the field. Who do you send? Gilead and MTS students. They could have expanded Gilead, made Gilead larger, trained more people, and then sent a large class from Gilead into different cities in America if Jehovah wanted to strengthen the field. See, I think it was dishonesty on the part of the organization. They're just in over their head. I think they just didn't know what else to do but to have layoffs. Money problems. Structural problems and planning problems. They don't know how to sell all these buildings and keep all these people and do all this stuff. They're in over their head. Why? Because Jehovah's not running that organization. That's why they're constantly changing their teachings. Now, they call other religions false religions. But whose teachings do we know continuously are false? Watchtower. Generation of 1914 teaching, that was a false teaching. So why Jehovah's Witnesses call every other religion false when every other religion that I know of don't need to revise their teachings every couple of years because it's all false? Watchtower has false teachings. Jehovah's Witnesses even know it. Oh, it's just refinement. No, it's false teaching. There's no logic at all with Jehovah's Witnesses. Strengthen the field, sending Bethelites when you got Gilead and you got MTS. Calling everybody else Babylon the Great, the world empire of false religion, when the only religion that has constantly taught things that are wrong and needed to be corrected, since 1975 and everything else. The book Millions Now Living Will Never Die is Jehovah's Witnesses. That's who's teaching false information, obviously. So comment down below. Let me know what you think. I would definitely like to hear from a Gilead student, an MTS student, and find out what exactly they taught and find out exactly how qualified and how effective those people are in leaving Gilead or graduating from Gilead. I just know that Jehovah's Witnesses, they're pretty small. As far as I know, Mormons and Seventh-day Adventists, everybody else does better. But Jehovah's Witnesses are probably the smallest group. So make all that make sense. Make it make sense. 937-789-4029. Trying to get caught up on some of the voicemails. We just have to remember to leave our number, because I'll listen to a voicemail. It'll be a long discussion on the voicemail, and it'll have everything but a phone number for me to call back. So let's try to remember to leave our phone numbers. And X Wall Kill Bethelite signing out.